everybody, welcome to To Be Seen. I'm Brandon Lou, and normally I'm the host of Comic Conversation, but today I am hosting a Batman review, the Batman review, a review of the Batman, a reaction, if you will, with two fellow co-hosts from To Be Seen shows, Joe Dove and Billy Joe. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. It's a little dark in Gotham City, so I had to turn a light on.
Billy, what's up with you, man?
Good. Just hiding in the alleys, waiting for Batman.
It's been a very exciting
it's daytime,
weekend.
so it's okay.
Yeah, it's been a very exciting weekend. Were you excited going in? How were we feeling before we even got in?
I was hyped. Like, I gotta say, like, the more I saw of the snippets from the trailers and things, and the more I was reading about it, I was excited. I was like, this is going to be a Batman to remember.
Oh, yeah. I actually thought, like, there was, like, the red hooded figure at the beginning. I thought, are they going, like, really old school and bringing back, like, the Mad Monk or something from, like, the Golden Age? What the hell?
I didn't know what to expect. At this point, we've seen so many Batman movies. It's hard to go into this film just objectively. We all have our own interpretations of what Batman should look like. And so we finally got to see it. It's finally out. Warning for everybody who is watching, checking in right now, there will be spoilers ahead. A quick summary, The Batman takes place in year 2 of Bruce Wayne's adventures into crime fighting, and it is not just a look at Bruce as Batman and his relationship with Gotham and the Gotham Police Department, but also the city of Gotham's relationship with Batman and their relationship with Thomas Wayne and the Wayne family. So, thoughts on the film. Joe, what did you think?
I loved it. I gotta say, even though it was 3 hours long?
It was 3 hours long.
3 hours
Oh, yeah.
long.
I didn't even check my watch during the entire thing.
Yeah. But what was crazy was it still had trailers on a lot of them. And I was like, God, they're going to make this 3.5 hours with all these trailers. But thankfully, I saw it in the new Cinemark theater where they have heated lumbar. So my back, because I'm moving, it was just like, I treat you nice. I give you some heat. And it was so good. So I was like, this is the greatest movie experience of my life. But I got to say, I love the dark and gritty undertones, but they managed to film this Batman story without making it so dark I couldn't see what's actually going on.
Yeah, but it's still had kind of an emo vibe. I mean,
yeah, Batman was very
playing
emo.
and all that. You kind of got like an emo Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into the good and the bad, but overall, you liked it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Billy, did you leave this theater feeling good about the Batman?
Oh, absolutely. Did you notice that this is the first time, like, Batman didn't kill somebody outside of the Lego Batman movies?
You know,
I mean, seriously, I didn't realize that, but
tired.
you take for granted. He is killed in every Batman movie.
I do get tired of seeing antagonists die. Maybe it's the comic book diehard in me, but I always want to see the potential of the villain coming back for another round. It always hurts when I see a villain die.
Yeah, that was a nice change. I didn't even realize until you brought it up. I didn't even realize. It's like, oh yeah, none of them died in this one. They always like get off to like.
And they had so many references to other Batman franchises. I mean, you had a little bit of the Shirley Walker theme at one part where you kind of had like the Batman animated series music.
Yeah.
You had a little bit of the Danny Elfman music.
Yep, I caught that.
The Batmobile had the color scheme of the Adam West Batman.
Yeah, and that it had that vibe. Like,
and in the subway cart. The subway, there was a gang that was dressed like the Jokers from like Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
There was absolutely a lot of, you could see they're pulling from different elements of different mediums and stories. There's a lot of rich material that lends itself to the Batman. When the film opens up, we are introduced to that music. It was almost a very peaceful kind of beginning at first. The music was, I don't know, I don't want to say light, but it kind of welcomed me into Gotham, and it kind of threw me off course. For so long, I've been used to
oh yeah, the Hans Zimmer I'm phoning this in soundtrack.
That's just big, heavy ship horns.
Thankfully, we didn't hear much of that.
No, this was very gentle on the ears, but also the music was kind of the star of the show for me. not to take away from anyone's acting, but it really guided itself to each story element, each emotional chapter we went through. The music just kind of guided us along there, and it was very helpful. Our main antagonist, of course, was the Riddler. What did you think of this interpretation of the Riddler, and how did it make you feel? Joe, you want to start?
Oh, sure. I think the Zodiac Killer Riddler was very cool. I actually got a couple of times where it was unnerving. It was like he was sneaking into people's houses. He found his way around. He got a group of people behind him. It was unlike any of the Riddlers, except for maybe the Hush story, if you watch the animated film, where the Riddler was actually a menace and not like a goofy sectarial villain like I'm used to seeing him even in the animated series. He's a jokingly, sometimes too jovial, that he's on par with the Joker. But this one, they actually really made him.
At one point in the comic book history, they said that they struggled because the Riddler kind of did turn into poor man's Joker on and off.
Yeah, but I love. Go ahead.
I think in the comics, especially during the Silver Age, when there was a big trend on not being too violent, we saw a lot of the villains become very goofy. The Joker and the Riddler both weren't really killing as many people. It was a lot more giant sledgehammers.
Thing kind of put a kibosh on that for a while.
Yeah, but it was interesting to see the Riddler taken in this way. I mean, this is someone who
felt more like traditional, like Golden Age, a little bit modern Bronze.
I normally just think of him as a thief. I don't normally see him as a murderer. So seeing this interpretation of him was very intriguing, a little refreshing, to show that there's still new ideas that you can throw onto a property that's, about a century old.
Yeah.
Yeah, originally when I saw The Mask, I was like, okay, I'm not going to like this. But then actually seeing like the storyline, seeing all the clues around, all the ciphers and all that, I was like, okay, I've given this a chance.
One of the things that I loved most, it's the thing I feel like I've been begging for, but I'm not sure if everybody was begging for it, and I'm not sure if everyone felt the same way, is the detective story.
Yes.
I feel a lot of Batman
Ra's al
movies.
Ghul's nickname for him has always been Detective, but he
Yeah.
never does any detective work.
The Batman films are normally action movies, and that's not to say that there's no action. We even get our expected Batmobile, car scene, but most Batman films are just action films with some, comedy maybe thrown in here and there, some light detective work. But this was very much GCPD and Batman.
Are you saying that there's
together.
something supposed to be taken lightly about the Bat credit card?
Hey, he never leaves home without it. I assume even in this franchise.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the detective atmosphere, this noir. This was a noir movie,
Right.
And a hard-boiled detective film. And we got to see this very close relationship between Batman and Jim Gordon and how he relates to the GCPD. How did you feel about that? And do you feel that this movie was too light on action, just the right amount of action? Billy, you start this time.
Well, I think considering, as we've mentioned, like especially the series that Batman is most prominently featured in for the majority of his existence has been detective comics as well as Batman. Having an actual detective work storyline is very good. I mean, you have a bad guy that's supposed to give clues and hints and do puzzles, but then they never actually do puzzles. They just kind of dance around, putting devices on people's foreheads and laughing with the Riddlers. I mean, with Two-Face seemed odd. Seeing this one where he's posting like clues with like death traps around people, like Jigsaw style.
Yeah.
Joe, go ahead.
I adored this whole setup because he did the thing that I love the most, and that's when people are talking to Batman, all of a sudden they turn around and Batman's gone. They were like, where'd he go? And that's one of the things that I absolutely loved about the classic series on the animated style. is, Jim Gordon would be talking to him and they'd get into a great conversation, and all of a sudden the conversation would be one-sided and they're, empty bagged. But I also loved the fact that they went into some social political issues, like Catwoman was bisexual and, Batman was there for it. And then there was the tension between Batman and Catwoman. And then there was the relationship with Alfred this time around was a little bit more like, you're not my father. But at the same time, he kind of was the father figure that Batman needed, Bruce Wayne, rather. Is that a big spoiler? Does everybody know that Bruce Wayne's Batman?
Look, it doesn't matter. I gave the spoiler
actually, I was
warning
almost surprised. I was glad that they didn't make the Catwoman's friend, who I thought she was going to be. I thought she was going to be Holly from the comics. By the fact that they didn't kill her off, that's a good thing, because know who Holly is. She was Selena Kyle's roommate, occasional lover, and briefly Catwoman, while Catwoman was on maternity leave back a decade ago.
I was also getting Holly vibes. We're talking about Catwoman now.
I loved everything about this Catwoman except for her headpiece. I thought it was so cheesy. I was like, oh, come on, y'all could have spent. I could have made that mask. Get my scissors. Here you go, and cut it, and then stitch these little ears on, and there you go. But otherwise, she was great. I loved the action scenes with her in it. I felt this movie did have the right pace of action and detective work. It felt like a mixture of Seven and Batman. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Seven.
Did you see this? They snuck in the Year One costume from I guess Catwoman Streetwalker days.
Yeah.
Yes. To answer your question, Joe, I have not seen Seven, but I have seen the comparison of the Batman to Seven.
Mm-hmm.
But from someone who wasn't looking for that in a Batman film, I guess they were looking for an action movie, and they compared the Batman to the movie Zodiac, which I did see, and Seven. But here's the thing: I like Zodiac, the movie. So that was not a bad comparison to me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I can understand that there are people who maybe were looking for something else, and this might not be their cup of tea. Catwoman worked for me. The only issue I have, and I didn't want to dig too much into negatives just yet, the only issue I had with Catwoman is I feel like even though this was a 3-hour movie, it was still not enough time to delve into maybe all the things we wanted to delve into with Selena. So yeah, we didn't spend enough time learning about the Holly-esque character. What was her name? Anika. And of course, the big reveal. I already gave the spoiler warning. And if you've read the comics already, this isn't a big reveal to you either. But that Falcone is Catwoman's dad. That is something I didn't expect to see revealed or really delved into in this movie. That caught me off guard. I was happy to see it, but I felt like Catwoman's importance in the movie was she seemed very important, then she'd fade away because it's not a Catwoman movie. And then she'd go back up again. And sometimes I feel like moments that were supposed to hit hard didn't hit hard enough because maybe we didn't spend enough time on them, and maybe it should have been saved for a sequel.
Maybe.
But we're not.
Some stuff that probably should have been saved for a sequel, or stuff that was
but
good.
We still have more from this movie. Yeah. So we talked about Riddler. We talked about Catwoman. I want to talk about Jim Gordon. A lot of time was spent with Jim Gordon. Gordon was almost an unexpected sidekick. Maybe in comics you expect to, because you spent so much time with Batman, you expect to see maybe a Gordon-centric issue now and then. But in movies, we don't spend that much time with Gordon. What did you think about Gordon?
I love the horn-rimmed glasses. My grandfather was a policeman. He was a lieutenant in the police force, so it kind of gave me vibes of my grandfather, whom I've never met. So I felt like connection there. But he had this gruff thing going on where it was like, "Are you trying to be Batman? Were you auditioning for Batman at one point?"
Yeah, it did sound like they were trying to out-growl each other.
Yeah. And I thought that was an interesting thing to do in this film, but it's supposed to accentuate the grit of this Gotham City, and I thought that his Gordon was a nice touch and a beautiful bow end to this Batman movie.
Billy, how would you compare Jeffrey Wright's Gordon to everyone else's Gordon? I mean, we've seen a couple of Gordons over the years.
Yeah, we've seen a couple. I would say like this is probably one of the better Gordons since like the Dark Knight trilogy. Was Gordon actually even in the Snyder movies,
No.
or was that just deleted footage?
I did not watch all of the Snyder films.
You're better off.
I didn't actually see Batman v Superman, and I did not watch Justice League in its entirety. It just wasn't my cup of tea. But I did find myself comparing Gordon to Gary Oldman's Gordon, who's another one we did get to spend some time with, and also the animated series Commissioner Gordon. The animated series just lives fondly in my heart, and I will never let it go.
Everybody loves the animated series. I mean, as I said, I was so happy they threw in Easter eggs to pay tribute to that one too.
What was cool for me, I guess for Gordon, we spent more time with him as a cop, and I guess that's thematically where we spend a lot of time with Bruce, because we don't see Bruce a lot. It's very much Batman. It's a Batman movie. Bruce is Batman, but he hasn't established.
This is the first Batman reboot where they didn't show the parents getting killed.
Yes, it reminded me of Spider-Man Homecoming, where we're not looking over his origin again.
I think they took notes from Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, you know what? Let's not do that again.
Yeah, it's very much okay. Look, we'll talk about it. There's no way you can talk about Batman without talking about his parents, but we don't have to show it. Let's jump into this movie and get this movie started already. But it was interesting because it's very much a Batman film, because Bruce hasn't established himself as a fixture in Gotham yet. He's a recluse. He stays home a lot. In the same way, Jim Gordon, we don't see a lot of talk about, Barbara. We don't talk about his wife. We don't talk about his kids. It's just, Gordon as a cop, not Gordon the family man. And so we kind of get to see him be a little tough, a little rough himself. He was very much not, he felt very much not like the silent partner of Batman and just Batman's partner. And it was a cool thing to see.
Yeah, it was a highlight. Definitely.
Yeah, he didn't seem like a cheerleader for Batman. He seemed like, oh, yeah, I'm actually doing my own work. You want an update? I'll give you an update. Now, just let me do my work.
We also get to see Penguin. Penguin is someone who I feel like when they made the announcement about, there's going to be Riddler, there's going to be Catwoman, there's going to be Penguin. I don't even think they mentioned Falcone yet when they announced that the Penguin would be there, or when we were guessing, hey, is that Penguin? Is it, before we even had like confirmation. There's a lot of feelings that there were too many villains possibly popping up in this movie. Did you think that it was well balanced, all the characters that we had here? Too many familiar faces? Billy, what do you think?
Well, I thought it was interesting that basically Penguin wasn't really much of a threat most of the movie. He was more of a goon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's actually interesting. I like that they took a big name that everybody was talking about, and basically he was Totoro's stooge. He was even a red herring at point. I was like, the whole point of, is he the stool pigeon? Is he the rat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's the rat?
Bring the rat to light. Yeah.
That was the other detective story. It was like, all right, we got to find this Riddler guy, but then you got to find out who amongst the personalities that we met is possibly the one feeding the GCPD their information, or the other way around. Who's giving the information to Falcone?
Right.
So it was very interesting when the results were Falcone, and I want to talk about Falcone, but I still want to get Joe's opinion on all of these personalities. Penguin, was there too many people? And you can lead into Falcone from Penguin if you'd like, Joe.
Okay, so here's an interesting thing. When they said that Falcone was going to be in it, I hadn't seen any of the footage of Colin Farrell as Penguin, but I saw the picture of him. So I was like, oh, I guess that's Falcone. So I'm like, I wonder who is it? He doesn't look like anybody from The Sopranos, but he does look like he's a mafia guy. So that's got to be Falcone. And then I read some articles. I was like, oh my God, that's Penguin. So I think they did a great job with Penguin. I thought he...
Oh, absolutely.
I thought he was you know, like you said, he was a thug. He wasn't really a menace, but he was somebody to be dealt with. He wasn't a pushover. And
Right.
he had his people in the club, like the twins. I thought that was a great part of levity and action in the film with the twins, and how Bruce or Batman kept getting those guys. It was great.
Oh,
So yeah,
my God.
Falcone, I felt, you know, was a really good villain, like a sub villain. He reminded me of Max Schreck or from the Batman Returns film, and I constantly put those two, Batman Returns being my favorite Batman from the original one, because it's the best. But I also compared this one because it's the same setup: the Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin, and then you have these external figures that are on the outside influencing these main villain characters, just like
Right
Max
now,
Schreck
next
was-
time I see this movie, I'm going to picture Christopher Walken's voice.
as fucking, man, I want you to collect the money in the club, but I really enjoyed the dynamics. And you still had some other power player pulling the strings of the main bad guys that you know from the comic, but they were really the main villains over the comic character villains. And I thought that was really cool, except for Riddler, but I thought that was a really cool take.
John Turturro did a good job. You brought up the Dark Knight movies. Carmine Falcone was played by Tom Wilkinson in Batman Begins. And it's a very different Falcone, because I feel like we see, you know, we're just seeing the mobster Falcone there, and he doesn't take any of the, you know, he doesn't take Rachel seriously.
Rachel.
You know, he doesn't even take the Scarecrow seriously in the Begins film. It's like, the walls are closing in around me. You know, whatever you got to do to get me out of jail, just get me out of jail.
Yeah.
We're just seeing, you know, he's more of an accessory.
Right.
And it wasn't like a ton of time was spent on Falcone in that one. In the Batman, not to say that he wasn't a mobster figure, but it was interesting showing his relationships both to the Wayne family and also his relationships to Selina Kyle, the Catwoman.
And Penguin.
Yeah, and seeing his relationships with everybody, seeing how he is intertwined. He is currently probably the oldest fixture in Gotham at the moment, now that Thomas Wayne not with us, you know?
They killed him? No.
But there's a line set in there that it doesn't matter who wins the election, because surrounding in the background of all of the drama happening in the Batman is the mayoral election in Gotham. And Dirty Cop goes and says that it doesn't matter who wins the election because Falcone's been the mayor for the last 20 years.
Yep.
So it's interesting seeing where exactly he's going to go, or even though I'm not sure he'll be with us in, you know, part 2. I'm not sure if his wound was fatal.
Right.
It seemed very fatal, but I don't think we ever got confirmation. So
Yeah.
it'll be very interesting to see whether he has a physical presence, or even if he doesn't have a physical presence, how deep does the Renewal Project and Falcone's branches or roots dig deep into Gotham? There was a lot of rumors and speculation that the Batman would feature the Court of Owls. So it'd be interesting to see that turn up. We dove into all of that. Let's get into the ending very quickly. I want to know, by the end of the movie, were you satisfied after your 3 hours? Not whether the movie was good or not. We all agree that the movie was good. Did it give you the climax and then the big boom, I guess, satisfying ending that maybe you might be looking for?
Yeah, I dug it, man. Like that ending when what I loved most actually was when the Riddler and Batman were talking and he kept calling him Bruce Wayne, and Bruce was like, shit, they're filming me, so how do I like get around this? And then he said, yeah, Bruce Wayne will never really rise to what his father was, and it was like, oh, he doesn't know. Okay.
Yeah, no, that commercial made it such a fake out that I thought, because Riddler does know in the comics, I thought, are they going to actually have it this early on in the reboot? They're going to have it that he knows right off the bat in the first movie, but nope. just a big fake out for the advertisers, and I love that.
Even in the film, like for the first couple of minutes when they're talking, I thought, oh snap, he knows, and then all of a sudden he said something that was like, oh, he doesn't know. So that was a really nice twist, and it was a nice throw for the film. I just thought the pace was very good, and I felt like the action to story was a little more towards the story, which I appreciated, because Detective Comics, you want to get a good story out of it, and that's what I feel like even the Marvel films are missing, is that deep-rooted story where you're like so invested that you're actually paying attention to every word the character's saying. Not like where Spider-Man, okay, this guy's on screen, and the whole audience is like, "Rah!" And you miss out on some points, and you have to watch it again. But, everybody was quiet because it was such a good, dark story that everybody wants to know, okay, what the hell is going on? And why is this Riddler keep killing people? It was so good, and I was so satisfied how he got him. And then, like you said, he didn't kill him, so he can definitely come back. And the mysterious cellmate to the Riddler.
I want to talk about that in a second, but before we go there, Billy, I need to know, because Joe brought up, oh man, all these Marvel movies that have come up, and there's kind of a formula and an expectancy. So
absolutely.
We know that there's a big final act, and that's normally how we end it. I don't feel like this movie had like this big dramatic final act, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment. Did all of these years of Marvel and big blasty, void in the sky, faceless villains and explosions,
it might seem like that to a lot of people,
your feeling on this movie, Billy?
But you also get a lot of stuff from the comic books. I saw there was like a lot of Easter eggs and stuff. I hate that I keep on saying that, but I saw a little bit of No Man's Land thrown in at the end. There's a little bit, there's a lot of love for the comic book world in this. There's a lot of love for Batman in general. This is definitely like a fan film, but done in a creative way to entertain massive audiences. The storyline does have like the things that everybody thinks are the traditional beats, but it's not so much of, oh, that's a Marvel formula. That's a comic book formula.
True enough. I think there was just an expectation for that big explosive third act, and that's not to say there wasn't more action in that final act, just not what I think people who, we reference the comic books a lot, but the movies are, I think, the thing having the largest influence on the mass population. There's more people checking out the movies than the books, so I think they might be more accustomed to one thing than the other. For me, I still enjoyed it, but it did stick out to me that, we didn't get this big, massive... I'm so used to seeing like 5 superheroes on screen at once.
I also just love the fact that, look at the fight scenes again. I mean, like, there's a lot of calculated moves. I mean, the thing that fight choreography and stuff like that in movies, everything should have an action. Your character should have a motivation. If a character is charging at you, they're trying to kill somebody. If they're trying to defend or avoid hurting people, they're going to be more defensive. A lot of times people just go for, it will look cool if this guy does this, so let's have this happen.
Right.
And even if it doesn't make sense, I mean, I'm going to hatefully have to do this, but throw in Star Wars. We all remember that Last Jedi fight scene in the throne room. It looked awesome when you see it the first time you see it. But then you notice and it's like, wait, why'd that guy's weapon disappear in that one take? Oh, wait, that guy was going to slice her, and then all of a sudden, like, they cut and suddenly she's turned around and he misses by a mile. Meanwhile, this, you see like, he's trying to avoid having this person in the line of fire. You see him trying to protect himself and the bad guys.
Before we talk about the mysterious cellmate, because there is one more thing I want to talk about before we get there, and it still lends itself to this third act that I was talking about. We see thematically Batman coming face to face with himself. When he's talking to Jim Gordon, Gordon is explaining that there's a way to work with these cops. Okay, you can't just do what he wants. You need to calm down a little bit. Alfred, in his conversations with Alfred, Alfred's going and trying to explain to him how he needs to be a fixture. There's a lot of talk about family and what it means to be a Wayne. And Bruce is really trying to find out who he is. He thinks he knows who he is, but there's still a lot to learn. But I think the biggest conversations are Bruce and Selina, where Selina, they have a talk about her friend who's missing, and Batman's very much of, oh, she brought this on herself.
Mm-hmm.
And when confronted with his values, probably thinks that maybe he's a little off base. When he has a conversation with the Riddler in Arkham, the Riddler is clearly inspired by Batman.
Yeah, by Batman. He's saying,
he
like,
believes Batman and him are working together.
I want to take down the bad guys too.
Yeah.
He sees himself as a hero.
And then in that last part, when we take down that last masked guy, they pull off the mask like we're supposed to get this big reveal. And it's not that he's a person we're familiar with, but when asked who he is, he says, I am vengeance. So clearly this guy who is inspired by the Riddler is also inspired by the Batman too. And so Batman is forced to think and realize that maybe he has to change his approach just a little bit because the effects that he's having on Gotham may not be 100% positive. What did you think about that? Joe, you start this time.
I thought that was a very interesting dynamic, and I feel like that's the cause for him to be more Bruce Wayne. I feel like he needs to inspire Bruce, needs to inspire the city, whereas Batman needs to put the terror into the people so that they know not to do so much bad wrongdoings at night. But I also feel like he realizes, because he spent so much time as Batman, that his methods can be strewn, and because of that, it's putting this bad taste into people's mouth unknowingly, and he's making them think that they're actually part of his reckoning for Gotham. And I thought the use of the individual that they were talking about from I think that was like the orphans, like the burnt out orphanage that he came across, that was one of the guys, the last unmasked guy, if I'm not mistaken. And I thought that was a very interesting use of foreshadowing. Like, I did not expect the guy from a couple of scenes ago to come back as like one of the Riddlers in the end. I thought that was very interesting. And it was a great setup for our big reveal at the end with the other cellmate. And I thought it was a cool thing, flooding the city. A powerful scene to me, being that I work in the city, and seeing that and knowing that is a quite possible outcome if somebody goes crazy and does the right thing. It'll be a nightmare.
Billy, what did you think thematically? It was the Batman's reflection of himself and feeling that he needed to inspire.
It was great because the thing was, they were finally starting to go back to like a concept that has been tackled in like the animated series and some of the games. Does Batman go too far? Does he occasionally need to be Bruce Wayne? Does Batman turning into almost as much of a threat as some of the characters that he faces? But then that's why Bruce Wayne is important, because in the cartoon they actually had that bunch of times where there's episodes where villains reformed or they tried to reform. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody remembers the one where Harley Quinn went good, but they kind of forget about like the one where ventriloquist worked in Bruce Wayne's mailroom, or they forget about the one where he gave one of Joker's goons a job working security at Wayne Industries. I forget about some of those cartoons. And you see like Bruce Wayne hearing like, oh, I have to help this politician and stuff like that. And you see him like debating, politician's not important. But then you see him at the end. Okay, Batman's only inspiring fear. And people are getting violent to inspire fear in others.
Yeah.
I need to inspire hope as well as fear. I need to try to do something that won't scare people.
Right.
Yeah, which is why he risked himself at the end with the electrocution. So
yeah. So Billy, who's the cellmate, man? Who is it?
Oh, I'm fairly sure that's the Joker.
I see. Here's my.
Hold on. Give me how certain. 90%, 100%. What are we thinking here?
Oh, I'm at least 90% sure of that.
Joe, who is the cellmate? I know you know.
I think it's the guy from Gotham. So
Jeremy? No.
Yeah. Or whatever his name was. I think
Do
it's
you
that.
think this ties into that show at all?
I think it might. I think it would be an interesting fray into it because this guy can get his moment to shine as the Joker. I know that Warner Brothers previously, when they had a different leadership, didn't want to mix the TV and the film universes. But now with this multiverse thing coming to a head with the Flashpoint, I think they're going to go back on that and go into, and they see how successful it is with Spider-Man.
They're definitely going to break that rule now because now they don't own. It's going to HBO Max instead of
it's like CW. Yeah,
CW.
Everything's going over.
CW is a joint venture between Warner Brothers and Paramount, so they have to share the film rights and television rights, which can screw them over like did Marvel with Spider-Man rights.
Well, we do know there will be a brand new Gotham series. That is absolutely true. Very much like Peacemaker, there will be a Gotham PD television series for HBO Max. That is absolutely happening.
No, I didn't know that.
Well, now you know, Joe.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. And luckily, I follow Comic Conversation on Facebook because I'm getting a ton of things that I didn't know. I'm like, oh my god, what's it? Oh, it's Comic Conversation. This is amazing. Thank you. Yeah, that's great work. So make sure, if you're watching this, to go to Facebook. The link will be below. Go to Facebook, give the Comic Conversation page a like, so you can get caught up on all the latest and greatest from Brandon.
But so you think it's a Joker, but a Joker we've seen before, a Joker possibly from Gotham. That is interesting. I had a different thought. And you kind of touched on it, Joe. I think there's a possibility that we could be looking at Hush in the future.
Oh.
They have already referenced
Elliot.
Wayne, Thomas Wayne, the Wayne family being friends with the Elliot family.
Yep.
The word Hush was thrown in when Riddler was doing his big reveal.
They did say Hush a couple times.
Yeah, they mentioned Hush. And the riddle that the cellmate said to Riddler was the answer to that was a friend. And since I believe his name's Tommy Elliott.
Yes, Tommy Elliott. Yep.
Tommy is a friend of Bruce Wayne. So I felt like the riddle itself lent itself to possibly seeing a connection there. And since Riddler and Hush worked together, or Riddler was, kind of behind the whole Hush storyline, it kind of seemed to make sense that they would all see together. So I'm going with Hush as the possible antagonist for the sequel, if there is a sequel.
A lower tier Joker, because the last Joker was like chaotic and ran show over everything. He basically was the reason why Gotham fell apart and opened up the way for Bane. If they do the release, we got to capture the Joker, we got to capture the Riddler, we got to capture Scarecrow, which is what they did in Hush. And I think that would be really, really cool. And you also have from the Suicide Squad, Killer Croc running around in this universe, so we could get him out into this, and it would be very interesting to pull all these pieces together and have a hell of a great Hush story, because that's one of the best comics. The artwork from Jim Lee and the story from, I think, Jeff Loeb, unparalleled. I thought it was one of the greatest comics they've had in the last couple of years.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about a potential sequel, things that you want to see explored that maybe weren't explored in this film, villains you might want to see in the next film. Joe, what's next for the Batman? What's next?
So I'm hoping I'm right when they tease this Joker-esque character, and it's from the Gotham show, and he's a sub-tier character for the future Batman series, which would allow another character that was beloved to me in the animated series, and that's Clayface. I would really like to see Clayface get his time to shine with the technology they have today to do these films. I think we could get a stellar story with that. Oh, and I really think that you hit the nail on the head with the Hush series, and that coming to fruition in the next Bat film, if there is another Bat film, because I believe this might have been a one and done, because they were thinking like the Joker, this is it, but we'll see.
I'm not sure what to expect. There might be a part 2. I haven't checked the news for today, so I don't know if there's been, but that does intrigue me because the director, Matt Reeves, seems to be very interested in more grounded work. Do you think Clayface will work in this environment?
It could, because you think about it, the cosmetic industry is such a huge, and people do so much plastic surgery you could do something with Clayface, but I don't think it'll be the over-the-top Clayface where like he's got all these pieces flying out at Batman.
I think maybe more like False Face from the Adam West series.
Right. Yeah, it'll be like a nice combination where he can disguise himself and like mess with Batman. Not like the top tier, like Hush would probably be the main villain, but he could be like another character that they get. He can mess with his face and fool Batman a couple of times, you know?
Okay, I like what you're doing there. I like, Billy, that was a deep cut.
Yeah, that really was. That's great.
Well, so let's talk. Is there anything, do you see a sequel coming in the future? Is there anything you want to see? Is there anything that you think was touched on in this film that could be explored deeper?
Next movies, I'm curious to see what they do with Gordon. I'm curious to see what they do with trying to expand the lore. I've added a lot to this in this movie. I'm intrigued.
I'm personally hoping to see more from the Penguin. We do know that they solved it already, that he is not the one who shot Falcone at the end. So he should be, depending on what information was collected, he should be not in jail. He should be free and on the run and possibly running things with Falcone got.
Or actually, could we get a mob war? Could we get Stromwell and Thorne? Should we get
Black Mask or was it Black Mask?
Black Mask.
Yeah.
I would love to see Black Mask done well. Actually, it's funny, I was thinking of Birds of Prey before when you were talking about the next movie. I was thinking maybe they could bring in Zax, like his henchman from that, and try to do him justice, because if they're doing like these dark, disturbed versions, a serial killer that marks himself with every person that he takes out would be an interesting bad guy, and they just kind of turn him into the Black Mask. Is he a love interest? Whatever, in that Harley Quinn movie that was awful?
I do not know. Again, another movie I did not catch. This might surprise people since we're doing a comic book film review and I'm comic conversation guy, but I did not watch those.
I saw it on a plane.
Well, I do hope we see more of Penguin story expanded. We do know that Selina's out there and she may be headed to Bloodhaven. For all we know, the next movie isn't even a Batman movie. Maybe we focus on her adventures in Bloodhaven.
And get a Tim Drake.
It'd be interesting if they did a Selina's Big Score.
If Falcone is still alive, I feel like we absolutely get Selina's Big Score, because that was a big influence. You know, you talk about influences. I felt like a lot of story elements were taken from the Telltale games, Batman, which I really enjoyed. Probably the most Batman enjoyment I got outside of the Batman animated series, because you get to play the role of the Bat, and it's a detective story, which is right up my alley.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to see what's in store for the future and how Batman goes about being not just a symbol of vengeance, but also a symbol of hope. There's a lot that we can see. I hope we do see a sequel and that Matt Reeves is along for the ride. Joe, anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
I'm super excited about and I know this is going to seem strange because it's not actually Batman, but the comic book dictionary series that you're doing. I just want to give a special moment to that. If you're on TikTok, I highly suggest that you follow Brandon Comic Book Guy and get all the information about your favorite and maybe lesser known comic heroes and a superhero dictionary. You can also find the snippets on this channel to be seen. And we are embarking on a fantastic finals voyage into the stars with Captain's Quadrant on our new channel, Spectrum Sanctum. And it's a lot of fun. And we are teaming up with our buddies out in Australia, Pop Culture Spread, for that joint venture. The cat's out of the bag. We just had the first episode out, and that'll be one of these little cards that you can go and link to. And I highly recommend you check it out if you're a Star Trek fan or comic book fan. We're going to have a lot of fun over there. We're definitely going to be doing the Multiverse of Madness review when that comes out. So I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Yeah,
it'll be nice to get the band all together.
Yeah, definitely. Bring the band back together. I made it to the gig, baby.
Billy, anything you want to say to the people before we wrap things up?
More Batman, and also definitely liking the new series. I gotta give you a shout out for that. Definitely gotta do more endorsements.
Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed our show. Of course, comment below what you think about the movie, any movies you'd like to see us review. And just go ahead and comment there. It really helps our algorithm. And hit the subscribe button to follow along with everything we're doing here. Follow our buddies over at Pop Culture Spread. Check out the new channel,
Spectrum Sanctorum.
Spectrum Sanctorum.
Yes.
It just sounds nice. It's so sweet.
It does.
You can support us by subscribing to our Patreon page at patreon.com/tobeseen. And that is all for me. If you have anything you want to say to me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lewis or Brandon and at Comic Combo, COMICONVO. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Go see Batman!